This is Tasting Room Radio. I'm Terrydavidmulligan, host and producer. This is a special video presentation. Took place in room 449 of the Royal Grand Hotel in Victoria. Hope I got the name right. I got the room right. We've learned when going to whiskey festivals, it's best if you just stay in one place and let the whiskey festival come to you. If you walk around, you lose track of time and space and place, and you start to sip, and there's no spit buckets. This is the 15th annual Victoria Whiskey Festival and the 15th annual Canadian Whiskey Awards that have been created by DubhGlas, who wrote this book. Where's his book? Here we go. This is his latest. It's called, Canadian Whiskey, the Essential Portable Expert. He rewrote about a third of it, maybe 40% of it. It's his third book. He's taken all of the previous reviews and stories and then freshened them up and added to it. DubhGlas is Canada's wine and is Canada's whiskey expert. He is our ambassador and he carries the flag. And so we're going to the 15th annual Victoria Whiskey Festival and the awards. He's the head judge. I think there's 12 judges in total, over 20 entries, over 200 entries for judging. So you got to be good to get to that top 10 and then number one. We're going to talk to DubhGlas. We're going to talk to Grant Stevely from DubhGlas in Oliver. Brennan Colbank, just up the road from me in Duncan with Stillhead. We're going to talk to Jason McIsaac from Sheringham, who their gin won the top gin award in the world, and they've been going crazy ever since. We're going to talk about that and more with him, and we're also going to talk to the winner of the best Canadian whiskey this year, 2025, Graham Macaloney from Macaloney's Island Distillery. He wins Canadian Whiskey of the Year. The word island is kind of important because all of the whiskies that he grew up with in Scotland and Ireland were created on islands. And he wanted an island in order to set down in this new world. And he came to Vancouver Island. He's in Saanich. And he is now the Canadian Whiskey Maker of the Year. That's it, what's going to happen. Next week, we're going to be talking to Bill Ashburn, a legend at 40 Creek. We're going to talk to Adam Bradshaw, from the Strath, the great whiskey room in Victoria. We're going to talk to the Sons of Vancouver, who are trying to shake things up and do it wisely. They won Whiskey of the Year 2 years ago. Gordon Glantz from Odd Society, neighbors in East Vancouver, and Dr. Don Livermore from Lot 40 and Wisers. That's it. 2 whiskey specials happening on Tasting Room Radio. All the details at mulliganstew.ca and tastingroomradio.com. Enjoy this conversation. We had a lot of fun. Thank you. If I am sitting opposite DubhGlas and I'm in Victoria, it must be January, it must be 2025, and it must be the Victoria Whiskey Festival and the Whiskey Awards for Canada. Am I correct so far?
So far you're correct, Terry.
You're the one that turned me on to all of this. It was right underneath my nose. I had no idea until you came along.
Well, my golly, people often talk about me having turned them on, but this is the first time it was the whiskey.
Do you have every year that you have one of these festivals? As you go home, as you think about them, do you have concerns about how it will thrive and survive, and what the response will be, or is it taking on a life of its own?
It has taken on a life of its own. I have to say that I am always nervous about the Canadian Whiskey Awards every year. This is our 15th year, and it's the most nervous day of the year for me, the only day of the year that I'm really nervous, and it always goes well. It gets better and better and better every year, and the Canadian whiskey that we're judging gets better every year. We had nearly 200 entries this year, Terry, and I'm telling you, there were some that did not get medals, but there were a lot that really got right up into the gold medals. So it's I don't have concerns about the whiskey. It's just, am I going to do it right?
And you started with the awards. Normally, events like this, the awards are on the Sunday night. The closing is the big deal. You start with a grand. You announce who your winners are going in.
Yes, we do, and you know what? And we pour those whiskeys during the Victoria Whiskey Festival, so people can go around and they can sample all these. Most of the distillers, or many of the distillers, are here at the festival, and sometimes their whiskeys are going to sell very quickly once they've won the award, and so it's we do announce it at the beginning. Now we put this on also on a Thursday night because we don't want it to kind of get swamped with the with everything else that's going on here, because this is just a fabulous festival. But I have to tell you, Terry, 15 years ago, we have a banquet every year, of course. 15 years ago, the Victoria Whiskey Festival, I think they gave away about 12 tickets to our festival. And then over time, it got to the point where we filled the room, and then we had so much interest from industry that we were saying, like maybe we should control the ticket so we don't have too many, whiskey fans there, too many influencers. And now this year we had to go from a buffet to a plated dinner so we could get 10 more industry folks into the banquet. It's getting bigger and more prestigious every year.
And that's all well and fine, but really the whiskeys must get better each year. I mean, you're challenging them to make better whiskeys. The industry itself is challenging itself.
Well, yeah, we've been thinking that for about the last 3 years. The major distilleries in Canada are still making really top-end whiskey.
Yeah.
The distilleries that have been making good whiskey but not great have been the artisanal distilleries. About 3 years ago, though, Sons of Vancouver broke out and produced a fabulous whiskey and actually won the awards. And the last 3 years, I think the craft whiskey movement has just kind of reached its maturity, its early maturity, and so we're getting, those whiskeys are getting better and better and better and better. And of course, this year it's Macaloney, Macaloney's distillery, who won the big award. Graham was sitting there and we didn't call his name, and we didn't call his name, we didn't call it down. I could see that he was getting worried and looking down, and then he gets like 6 golds or something like that. and then we call him up on stage for the Canadian Whiskey of the Year. Heather Leary, she said, I've never seen Graham speechless before.
That takes some doing.
Yeah.
Can you, in a couple of words, in a paragraph or two, explain why that particular whiskey that he brought in, which was very complex, even in its titling, bested them all?
Yeah, I wish people wouldn't give those great massive long names to their whiskeys. But in any case, it was a beautifully balanced whiskey. Nothing really kind of overtook it. It had so many intricate flavors in there. It had fruity notes, wine notes in there. Not really
kelp.
Wine. I didn't taste kelp in that, but it did have a lot of smoke.
Yeah.
Okay. It had peat smoke in there, and it just he has brought all of these together. Now it still has the vitality of a younger whiskey. It doesn't taste green or anything like that. It's really a beautiful, well matured whiskey. And in the media tasting that we did on, I think Wednesday or Thursday, I poured it next to what is probably the most complex whiskey of the year and the best balanced whiskey of the year, in my opinion, which was the Canadian Club 18-year-old. And you could taste the difference in age in those, but it was equally as balanced as the Canadian Club. The Canadian Club is gifted. They have a gifted blender. But so yeah, this is more than a paragraph. I'm sorry, Terry, but I'm quite enthusiastic about this. And it's a really beautifully balanced whiskey. Nobody is going to be unhappy if they buy a bottle of that Macaloney Peat Project.
Will they be able to find a bottle?
I think they probably could. The Strath has some here at the festival. The Strath liquor store has a table at the festival, and I think they'll sell it to people here. But yeah, I'm sure he's got another batch coming.
Let's hope so.
Yeah.
all in all, can you say that the level of competition is getting better and better and is increasing to your, because I know that you want that. That's what you're looking for.
The level of competition is getting significantly better. It is becoming much, much more challenging to win Whiskey of the Year. And I think it's no secret. I love all of these new whiskeys that are coming from the artisanal distilleries. But if I just am drinking alone at home, I'm drinking, big distillery, 40 Creek. I'm drinking like Lot 40. I'm drinking, Canadian Club. Canadian Club is just insane these days. It's so good, And but it's becoming more difficult for these big, really skilled producers to win, because there are so many great little guys out there as well. I have to say, at the other end, we had more whiskeys this year than ever before that did not win anything. Some of the producers some of the new producers are not quite ready yet. They may have been able to compete 5 years ago, but now I think they're going to have to wait a couple more years till their whiskey matures.
Can you say that some of these smaller, like the Sons of Vancouver, have they been able to influence not just the market, but the makers? Have they shown the possibilities?
Well, I think the answer to that is yes. I think if you take something like Crown Royal, they know what's being released 10 years from now. Like that new Crown Royal single malt, which came out this year. Yeah. I tasted that 10 years ago at Kenway. Okay, and they only had it as good as they wanted it to be this year. By the way, it does not taste anything like Scotch. People don't know that they can hardly believe it's single malt, but it isn't. It's made in a column still. 40 Creek really, I think they do one special release a year, and they are kind of leading on innovation.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking about innovation, but they're just doing things that the Scottish did decades ago, like peated Balvenie and stuff like that, But the little guys, I think, are pushing. I think that the big guys, they have increased for sure the number of premium whiskeys.
Yeah.
And some of these premium whiskeys are spectacular. I keep going back to when I opened that Lot 40 Dark Oak a few years ago. It just swear word blew my head off. It was so good. Okay,
yeah.
And I remember my wife was pouring the whiskeys. She fills the bottles. Until 3 years ago, she was filling the bottles every year. She brought this whiskey out and said, "You've got to taste this. You got to smell it." So then I said, "Janet, I'm not allowed to know what these are." So she poured me off some. It was Canadian Club 42-year-old. It was just fabulous, I think that the big guys, but I think a lot of that is coming from within the big distilleries. They themselves have very talented people. I think the most talented blender in Canada is Maria Palafox at Canadian Club.
Wow.
Canadian Club. She's in Calgary. She does all the work there. She's just nuts. She's so fabulous,
All right. Now, I got to ask you about this. He said handing him his own book, Canadian Whiskey, the Essential Portable Expert. It's the winner IACP Award, David out now.
By golly, we released this book in March. It's a brand new third edition of the Canadian Whiskey, the Portable Expert book. But it's the publishers say I need at least 35% new material. And I said I have way more than that, and he said go wild. So it's all new. I've rewritten every chapter, but most of the chapters have significantly new material in it, especially the history. I've been doing a lot of research, especially in government archives and things like that, and a lot.
You love that.
Well, Terry, that's my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of things that people were talking about. 5 years ago, even our best guesses, and I've got a lot of new information. So the history's great. I got 120 new tasting notes. I wrote every one of these myself with pleasure. Imagine having a whole year to write 120 tasting notes. Yeah, it's full color, and it's in hardcover again, and I think it's like the best work I've ever done.
Updated and expanded, the third edition Canadian Whiskey, David That's the guy to follow. What's your website?
It's CanadianWhiskey.org.
And the podcast?
The podcast, well, I don't do that. I have Instagram at DavinDEK.
Okay. Congratulations once again.
Thanks very much, Terry. Gee, it's good to see you again.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Davin DeKirkham. Introduce you this way. I'm talking to Grant Douglas Stevely, and I from the land of three named people. I'm Terrydavidmulligan. This is Tasting Room Radio. That Douglas middle name comes in handy, say, if you wanted to market something.
Yeah, it certainly does. It's my middle name. It's my dad's middle name, my grandfather's first name. His father came from Glasgow, so we have a bit of a tie to the whiskey industry.
But the thing is, it's spelled differently.
It's true. We spell it in Gaelic, a little bit of old world tradition.
Give them that spelling.
DubhGlas.
So why did they need the D in there? I don't understand that. Hold on a second. No, D-U-B, but the B's not, there's no B in Douglas.
I mean, I don't speak Gaelic, but there's some unique spellings. We've all seen it on whiskey bottles. And
How would they say it in Edinburgh?
I think they would say Du, as in Douglas.
Douglas.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Well, that's it. And you have some gold medals hanging up. What did you win?
Yeah, we won a couple of gold medals at the Canadian Whiskey Awards this year for our Roman numeral 18 and our Oh Yeah whiskey, single malt whiskey.
Why Oliver?
I moved from Banff to Oliver to mature whiskey in a hot, dry environment to get richer maturation in a shorter period of time.
So you passed on Rocky Mountain water and went to Okanagan water. How's the water?
The water's fantastic, but we did take some water from Kananaskis country and blend it with one of our whiskeys. Rock glacier water we blended with one of our whiskeys. So I needed a little bit of home to bring back.
We are blessed with water.
We are certainly so fortunate. Yeah, it's one of our strengths for sure.
So tell us about the two winners.
Well, our first winner here is wasn't available to the public, actually. This is a Cask Futures customer. These are people that have invested in our distillery.
Futures.
Cask Futures, yeah. So you buy whiskey 3 years in advance. And yeah, it was a fabulous whiskey. So this was the first time we entered one.
And for wineries do that on reputation. People say, I like what you're doing, and I believe in you, and I'll buy that bottle three years down the road. I'll pay for it now because I like what you're doing. So you've developed a reputation.
Yeah, we're certainly fortunate, and typically even on Oh Yeah, which is our other release, we're sold out of our whiskey by the time the results come around.
How much are you making?
Not enough. That's the short answer. Yeah, and we're so fortunate. I think Davin has created such an amazing awards program in recognizing Canadian whiskey. The challenge is as small batch distillers, we just don't have product left by the time we come around for the recognition. However, people have discovered us before they've purchased the whiskey because they enjoy it, and that's all the award winners that are small batch. They purchased it in advance and they get recognized more because they recognize that whiskey was good.
I'm going to backtrack one. Douglas, let's stick with that for a minute.
Sure.
But it's looks, and you can say Douglas to a bartender, I'm certain, and a store owner. What does it actually mean? Because everything has a meaning in Gaelic.
It means from the dark water. So we're using water from the bottom of the aquifer in the Okanagan Valley. So a bit of a play on words on our dark water, which is the color of our whiskey, and of course where we're sourcing our water.
Did you build that distillery literally from ground up?
We certainly did. Yeah. Everything's from the ground up. I purchased the property years ago. The idea was to have a long-range vision of building a distillery from the ground up and looking towards the future.
Would you hold up that bottle so that camera right there could see it, just so they can have a look at it and get that? This is going to have to, just so you can see. Check out this. Look for this. What's on the very top?
What are you looking at?
No, I was looking. Okay. And it's called Oh Yeah?
It's called Oh Yeah. I was just saying to Heather outside, we get inspired with our names for our whiskey, and when I smelled this, we got a little bit of a fruit note. We used a Canadian port style red wine barrel to add some fruit component to this, and I smelled it, and it smelled like Kool-Aid. And all I could think of was that Kool-Aid guy that used to bash through the walls and say, "Oh yeah."
Okay. What are your plans with this success that you have? You obviously are on the right road. You're attracting people. They're interested in what you're doing. Have you got something you're going to surprise us with?
Well, I think our best whiskey's yet to come. So we're always, trying to improve, trying to build better qualities products, and chase that top prize at the Canadian Whiskey Awards.
I would think, being in the Okanagan, that your barrel program can get really interesting because you're surrounded by a lot of barrels, a lot of used barrels, neutral barrels, and fresh.
We've done a number of cask finishes with Canadian port style red wine barrels from wineries, which have been successful, like Oh Yeah. We've used winery barrels as well from the local wineries. So we're adding a bit of a terroir, I guess you could say, with our wine region by finishing our whiskey in wine barrels.
Are you going through any of the difficulties in the farming community having with the double deep freeze and just it's a roller coaster ride right now?
Yeah, it certainly is. I think with the wine, brewing, cidery industry, all those industries are certainly feeling the pinch.
Can you ship directly to Alberta?
Is this official, or are we allowed to? Yeah, we certainly can, and we're distributed in Alberta as well through the GLC.
You have Alberta friends, even though you abandoned them.
Well, I miss Banff, I miss Canmore, Calgary, I miss the Rocky Mountains so much, but I do not miss the winters. Yeah, we're so fortunate in Okanagan with the warm summers.
How do you like the Vancouver Island winters?
Yeah, well, this year it's really good. Yeah, it's been fantastic because we drove out from the Okanagan out here, so the roads were fantastic.
Have you got peat up there you want to work with?
We've done some unique stuff. There is some peat in our area, and much like our friends at Ag Society and Gordon Plans, we've done some unique ways of infusing peat into our whiskey.
And what about sagebrush?
We have a liqueur that's made with some wild sage, but it's our secret liqueur.
What's your website?
We're the DubhGlasDistillery.com with that unique spelling, DubhGlas.
Grant Douglas Stevely from Douglas has joined us here on Tasting Room Radio. Thank you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. Appreciate the time.
Say hello to Mindy and Scott.
Hi, Mindy and Scott.
All right. This is Tasting Room Radio. I'm Terrydavidmulligan. I'm buried under a 100 sheets of paper. I'm sorry, I'll recycle them. Are the names and places of all of the people that we're going to be talking to today. Some of them I'm going to ask to introduce themselves and why they brought what they have on the table here.
Oh, hey, it's Jason McIsaac here from Sheringham Distillery.
And what's that on the table?
We have an expression of our whiskey here. I mean, we're mostly known for gin, of course, as you know. But yeah, I've made a little bit of whiskey, and I'm here to share some of it with you.
Was it inevitable you were going to head into whiskey?
Well, to be honest, it was my dream and goal to start with whiskey. And I started making whiskey, and then I started making gin, and
The gin
the gin really took off, and it got a lot of attention. And then I would get the gin program rolling, and then I would be, okay, now I can start making some whiskey. And then guess what? Gin started taking off crazy again, so we had to focus on gin, and whiskey just kept getting pushed to the back burner. Well, so there was a little bit, simmering the whole time, but
not a bad thing that the gin pays the bills while you can concentrate on whiskey.
Well, everything just evolved into gin, and you know what? I'm totally grateful for it, to be honest. I mean, I couldn't imagine anything better. Like it's just been wonderful.
Before I head into your whiskey conversation, how are you doing in the gin world?
The gin world, yeah, really good. We are being distributed all across Canada, and we are in 9 states, and I just heard 2 days ago that we're opening up in 12 more states. So that's really exciting.
Is Europe interested? Japan?
We're distributing in Japan. We're distributing in Europe. We're sending a shipment to Belgium. We just got our first order last week. We are in the UK, and we're also in Taiwan, and a couple others.
Did some of them see you as an oddity because it was Canadian gin?
No, I don't think so.
Or
I
did
mean,
they just take it at face value?
yeah, I think Canadian gin has a great reputation, and when we did send our Seaside gin over to London to the World Gin Awards, and it won best contemporary gin in the world in 2019. I mean, that was kind of affirmation for us that we were making something at a world class level, but everyone else as well. I think kind of eyes turned on it, and they're like, okay, these guys are, world best in the world. I'll try it.
I think you guys did a happy dance, didn't you?
Yeah, there was a couple tears of joy. That's for
bet there
sure.
was.
Yeah, there was really. Yeah.
So how about these whiskey people? Are they different from ginners?
Yes, they're a special breed. Yeah, definitely.
That's so kind. That's so kind. Because they are different. They're and you have to
try to use kind words.
Answer this question.
Sure.
I believe that the character of the winemakers, for example,
Sure.
shows up if the person making the wine is interesting as a character, has a view of life itself. It will show up in the wines. Does the same thing apply to whiskey and gin?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It does. You bet it does. Every different whiskey I've tried, especially in the last few days at this festival, it really is a representative of the producer. Yeah.
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 Now you wanted to make whiskey. Was this the first?
This was not the first. We've released 5 other expressions.
I'm a little hung up in the gin. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, gin's been on the front.
So the Coastal Craft Spirits, what made it stand out for you?
What made what stand out?
Well, I mean, you had 3 or 4 that you could have presented and poured. Why did you bring this one?
Oh, this is their most recent release. So the ones that we've released before were small, limited, and sold out immediately. So this is what we have now.
Is that a bad thing?
No, it's a great thing. Yeah, yeah. It's been really fun.
Tell me about this bottle.
Yeah, sure. This whiskey here is made with all BC grain. It's made with rye, wheat, and malted barley, and it's aged for. The barrels I selected for this blend are 3.5 to 5.5 years old, and it's aged in New American oak. Really nice barrels, and it's all been mashed, fermented, and distilled in Souk when we had our facility in Souk.
Okay. What you learned making gin, were you able to apply to whiskey, or is it a different school?
It is a different school, and my background's culinary, so I was a chef. I cooked for 23 years before distillation, so I used a lot of the skills that I learned in that world to bring to distillation and to bring to the still and formulating recipes, especially when it comes to gin. But the whiskey's a bit more of a longer game. So to formulate a recipe takes a little bit more time and study, I think. Yeah.
Speaking of study, did you go back? Did you go to class, or did you not so much go into a school or a classroom, but did you start to hook up with people whose voice you listen to?
Yes, I did, for sure. Ken Winchester was one, actually. Yeah. He was. He mentored me a little bit. I would show up at his place and ask him some questions, and then back off a bit. When I was asking too many. Because I can ask a lot, and I was pretty persistent. So I'd show up and I'd bring a piece of duck confit, and then I'd back off, and then I'd show up and I'd bring some chanterelles, and then I'd show up and I'd bring some moose meat. And he thought it was great, but he'd give me some answers and then, okay, get out of here, punk. And then, but he was very kind to me, and he showed me a lot of direction, and he sold me a still too back in the day. That was before I had a license to distill and everything. So I was asking him as many questions as I could and just kind of pointed and, to the point of where I was compensating him with.
Where do you want to take the whiskey program past this point?
The whiskey program, well, we have several barrels that are aging. So I would like to do a few single cask expressions and a few, just experiment with some blending and see what happens with these barrels. Yeah.
And which of your gins has taken over the lead in popularity?
Well, the Seaside Gin is definitely always been the flagship and the most popular one, but we have a new one the newest one. It was released in 2023, but it's called Rain Coast. Yeah. And that one's going after my heart. It has an elegance, and it just really expresses the temperate rainforest and petrichor after it rains. with a fresh forest floor. There's a bit of oak moss, a bit of nettles, and some cedar leaf as well. Of course, juniper and a lot of fresh lemon peel, but I really like it a lot. I think that one's going to do.
Okay, I had one final, it's a hard question to ask because it's just very personal. Who was your favorite Much Music VJ?
TDM.
No, come on, it was Erica M.
No, okay, so I was talking about Erica M. when she was on the Power Hour. I'm a metal fan and punk fan, and when she was playing
Slayer.
Celtic Frost, Circle of Tyrants video, it was mind blowing, and I still love it to this day. I mean, I was listening to it yesterday. Slayer, yes, all the old Metallica days, and she did great interviews and had so many people through there and really promoted that metal scene, that punk scene, which was really alternative back then and really kind of, yeah.
That's not really what I was looking for, but that's good. We'll close on that. What's your website?
SheringhamDistillery.com. Check it out. It's an awesome website.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to see you again.
Graham Macaloney has joined us. This is Tasting Room Radio. I'm Terrydavidmulligan. We're at the 15th annual Victoria Whiskey Festival. Is it 15?
I think it'd be more than that, actually.
Is it more than that? Oh, never mind. I'll fix it in the mix. Did you hear a number?
No. Hey Heather, how many
years is this?
what year is this for the festival?
20.
This is the 20-something, it could be 25, 25, I don't know. It's the annual Victoria Whiskey Festival and the Canadian Whiskey Awards. And the Canadian Whiskey of the Year, Macaloney's Island Distillery, Peat Project Moscatel Barrique, and the Single Malt Whiskey of the Year, the same. The sugar kelp infused peat. Oh, we have 2 stories to tell and many more. Hello, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Terry. I very much appreciate it.
When they were giving the when Davin was on microphone and he was reading off the list of winners on Thursday night, and you were sitting there making note, you're looking, hoping your name was going to come up, and your name was going to come up, and your name was going to come up, and then your name came up in a large way. How were you feeling at that moment?
Flabbergasted and bewildered. We're still a young distillery. Started up in 2016, and you're up against whiskies that are 30, 40 years old, and for us to take more gold medals than any distillery in Canada, including the best whiskey of all, I couldn't believe it.
But if I can say so, having met you for the last couple of years, you have a confidence in what you're doing. You can see down the road how this is going to unfold for you, and then you deliver.
Thank you for that comment, actually. I think being a lifelong whiskey connoisseur helps because you're in with the punters, you know what they're looking for. But my training, because I've got a bloody PhD in fermentation, right, and I've worked in the industry, different fermentation industries, so I knew that it was the key thing is if you build great people around you, a team effort, you've got the best equipment and the best ingredients like Canadian barley, you're onto a winner, right? So as long as you make sure you've got best practices, best people, best equipment, best ingredients. And so we brought in the best practices from Scotland. I went to Ireland to study the best practices in Ireland when we won World's Best Irish Whiskey a couple of years ago. And then here, this is amazing this is the first time a single malt whiskey has ever taken best in Canada.
Yeah.
But it is, as you allude to, it's you've got to build that basis, to ultimately be able to deliver something like this from.
Graham, let's see how we got there, because I noticed that it says in these notes, he dedicated his heart to finding a way to make whiskey for a living. Through those circumstances, would find a way of sidetracking his dreams. What was that circumstance?
I'm not sure specifically which one that is.
There's so many.
As Rabbie Burns once said, the best laid plans of mice and men gang after glee. Basically, first ever job, summer student at Black and White Whisky Factory, went off, did my degree in fermentation, got a PhD, I'm all set to get a job in the industry. Nobody bloody wanted to recruit me in the industry because I was overqualified. So plan B was I became a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made with Pfizer, Eli Lilly, I made antibiotics, insulin, human growth hormone. So that was a lot. But finally, the passion brought me back around, and with that great industrial training and discipline, I was able to then come into whiskey and create a job for myself.
Let's take these awards one at a time if I can cut straight to the chase. The single malt whiskey of the year, Macaloney's Island Distillery Peat Project Sugar Kelp Infused Peat Red Wine Barrique. It's the sugar kelp that should catch my attention and does. Was it an afterthought? Was it always going to be central?
No, the sugar kelp is special, right? And it does have a kind of a. My seventh great granddad was an Elach. That's someone that grew up and lived on Isla,
Yeah.
the ancestral home of peated whiskey. And so I went back and studied how to do peat smoking there, brought it to Canada, really the first distillery outside of Scotland to peat smoke their own barley. But in Isla, if you go there in the winter, it's howling gales, and all that seaweed that blows up on the beach gets blown across the peat moors. I thought, I wonder if seaweed makes the peat on Isla a wee bit special. Well, you know what? Vancouver Island, we've got a lot of seaweed. And so we worked with a group up in Sydney who partnered with First Nations, and we harvested some seaweed from Barclay Sound, added that seaweed, the sugar kelp, which is very special because it's got a sweetness to the taste, and it smells sweet when it burns, and the sweet smoke comes out in the whiskey. And I chose that to then burn with our peat, which is local peat, local barley. We smoke that local barley with the local peat and the seaweed from Barclay Sound, and out comes the world's best spirit at the World Whisky Awards, and now best single malt in Canada.
How much does our Mediterranean climate help this process?
It's fantastic. In fact, I would embellish by saying the maritime climate in particular. But you're right, because what happens is in the summer, because we have really quite dry and sunny conditions, that really helps with my angel share. Now, that angel share, when you're losing whiskey that you should be selling to and it's evaporating and the angels are consuming it, sounds like a nightmare for a Scotsman, but in actual fact, for a whiskey maker, that's the perfect recipe, because as you lose that whiskey out the cask, in comes the maritime sea air, and that gives us an island character. And you believe it or not, when you taste our whiskies at the back end, apart from the seaweed notes, but every one of our whiskies at the back end has a hint of salt in it. And so we're so excited to be in this, as you call it, Mediterranean climate.
I wrote down here, Macaloney, Lords of the Storm.
You've been doing your research. I'm actually a genetic genealogist as a hobby, right? That's why I proudly wear the kilt. And so the actual Gaelic meaning means we've been a bunch of troublemakers from the get-go. It's the sons of the Lords of the Storm. So we've been troublemakers from the get-go.
Is that a Cameron you're wearing?
Yes, it is, yes.
Yes, I just want to make notes here. Now, 700 Canadians invested in the distillery. Did the peat heads have anything to do with all of this?
I wouldn't say particularly. I absolutely am inspired by the feedback from not just our own 700 founder owners, but all whiskey enthusiasts, right? Getting that feedback from the punters. But what's special about our peat, and I love about our peat, and I poured it last night, these two whiskeys last night, said, who in this room has never had peated whiskey before? Because a lot of women and younger guys might think that peat's a bit off-putting, it's too strong, and everybody put their hands up and said, this is the first time I've ever had peat, said they loved it, right? So it's an approachable peat, and it's educating and introducing people, so it's a great, fantastic product to be working with.
I know it took a long time to get to this point, but tell us about the Canadian Whiskey of the Year, the Island Distillery Peat Project Moscatel Barrique.
So this is one that might have alluded to. It is literally the best whiskey bar none, whether it's rye, corn, wheat, Irish, single malt, in Canada. And that's the first time ever that a single malt has taken this award. It's a real connoisseur's delight, this one. Our master distiller, who worked in 16 Scotch distilleries, myself, we love this wood. It's a Portuguese sweet white wine.
I saw that.
And it's European oak, which is a bit spicier and more tannins in it. But the Moscatel gives a lovely, delicate white wine note to it, and floral notes, flowery notes. And our whiskey inherently has bags of fruity notes. And it's amazing they uplift each other together, and that's what makes it so spectacular.
You and I had a conversation about peat. Why we must have peat on this island. We must. It's just a freaking rock. There must be peat everywhere. But Washington has better peat.
So there is peat everywhere. You're absolutely right, and there's tons of it. You know, I put out the word to founder owners, you know, the 700 investors, and ask punters, and people would suggest, well, why don't you dig it up out Rivet's bog? Right, that's a nature reserve. What do you want me to do? Go in at night time with a spade? And anyway, and then there was another bog on the mainland, right? And I phoned up the National Association of Sphagnum Peat Moss Producers. A charming lady in St. Albert, Alberta, said there's no commercial peat in British Columbia. And I put this out in a newsletter to all the people that follow
What
us.
happened?
I got a message back from someone in Ottawa that said, BS, Graham, BS. there's a peat place in Okanagan, right? And I contacted them, yeah, we do peat. I find out that they've stopped it now because they've run out, right? They commercially harvest carpet moss, montane carpet moss. They're not allowed to be a member of the National Association of Sphagnum Peat Moss Producers. So, anyway, so by that time I'd gone south of the border, and the industry is very collegial. Westland Distillery, the great distillery in Seattle, they put me on to the peat source they use, and so we're actually using that same peat source.
Thursday night, you were named Canadian Whiskey of the Year. Friday morning, when you pulled your head finally off the pillow, what were you thinking?
I was still bewildered, but it's you've kind of alluded to it, I think, with some of your questions earlier. That, you know, being an entrepreneur in this highly regulated industry is a slog. It is a slog, and economic times are tough. But when you come to awards like this, and you take more medals than any other distillery in Canada, it's like all of a sudden it makes it worthwhile. That and interacting with the punters in the tastings.
And finally, what effect can this win and your work have on the island being a home for distillers?
Great question. Look, we all float up together, and I was so proud and pleased to see the other BC and Alberta craft distillers winning so many medals, because we all come up together. We've gone a step further, and we've actually created the Northwest Whisky Trail for single malt distillers to really put us on the international map.
Nice. And
And then that way people will know this region is outstanding from an international perspective.
what's your website?
No, it's Macaloney Distillers with an S.com, and go figure how to spell Macaloney.
Thank you. Go and find the bottle. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Terry. Appreciate it.
I have these wonderful notes as supplied by our host. Brandon Colbeck, founded by the Colbeck family, Stillhead Distillery opened its doors in October 2017 after working 15 years in the tech industry. Master distiller Brandon Colbeck left his job to pursue his dream career, blending the two things he loved most, chemistry and spirits. What was that original job, Brandon?
I was an IT manager with working in a team of about 200. We're contracting out to the government, so totally different industry from what I'm doing now.
You could have been big in IT.
Yeah, but this is really fun, and life's short. And if you find something you love, like for work, then you'll never work a day in your life. And that's truly, I mean, there's a lot of hard work days in just making spirits, but every day is such a new challenge, and it's fun.
Where's the funnest part?
I think it's really here, like coming to Victoria Whiskey Festival and seeing fans of our product, and these people really know whiskey, and to be considered in their purchases and loved, it's just that really makes the hard work days at the distillery worth it.
And how many years have you been coming?
I think my first time was in 2018, so I'm relatively new to the festival, but I haven't missed once except for the COVID year.
And how many more island whiskeys are being poured here?
Amongst all the distilleries, we've got Macaloney's at the distillery, and then Shelter Point.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. Maybe Phillips might be at a table, but our master class last night was with us 3 distilleries.
But the Macaloney winning the top prize this year will set up a flag, yes?
I think so. I really think that here on the West Coast we're pushing what Canadian whiskey can be, and you see that in a peated single malt made on Vancouver Island. And realistically, our region is known for good food and good drinks, so it fits. And it's going to help us all out.
Is there any truth to the rumor that Hanks built where they built because they were so it could be closer to your distillery?
I don't think so.
It's a hot corner.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm not too proud to say that people probably come to Hanks and then come in and stop and grab a bottle or have a cocktail.
What did you decide to bring to pour? Now, let me ask you 2 questions. How wide is the portfolio now, and what did you bring to pour?
It's pretty. Our whiskeys come and go, so we do a lot of small batches. When I say small batch, like usually around a 500 bottle release or a single cask, which can be anywhere from 150 to 250. But usually we've got what we focus on is local flavored or oak flavored. So if we're not doing whiskey, the core of our lineup is the wild blackberry gin, rhubarb gin from Couch and Bay, and along with the blackberry vodka. And then the rest of our portfolio pretty much is just single small batch whiskeys. And we do them in batch, so sometimes they come back a year later.
You've got 2 bottles there. What's the open one, or the one that's exposed?
This is the hottest selling product that we've come up with, and it's our whiskey cream. So do you want me to tell you about the whole process, or just okay? No,
I wanted to. I want you to pour me a sip if it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
And tell me why cream? Why cream this time?
Well, there was, for one, it's a very popular spirit category, and so many people drink it in their coffee and also cocktail with it. But I've seen an opportunity where there was the products on the market were quite often flavored with artificial flavors, and I had this idea to just get back to basics on it. And what we did was we found a dairy supplier who would homogenize the cream with our cask strength whiskey. So normally they homogenize with high proof spirit or vodka, then they'll add a bit of whiskey and some flavors. So we were in a kind of a category of our own. This is made with a 3-year-old wheated whiskey. But we also had the dairy add lactase, so it's lactose free. Then that's been a real big selling point.
That's an easy drink.
Yeah, it goes. It disappears pretty quickly, which is perfect for me.
Did you make a lot of it?
We did. So this is our second batch, and we can't really keep up with it. So it gets out.
That's such a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have, but still a problem. So we have a custom bottle. It needs to be painted. We don't want any light on the cream, and it seems to just sell. We put an allocation out to liquor stores. They order, and I actually just delivered my last case of this batch to the Strath liquor store here in town. So if you see it in a liquor store and you want it, then I suggest buying it. We'll have another small release in June.
You got a price point?
It usually is around $36, $37. Retail prices can vary a little bit, and plus taxes. But yeah.
That's the price of a main meal just on a menu.
Yeah, exactly right. And you got cream in there, so it's you have there's a few calories in there that could keep you going compared to food.
And what's in the bottle? What's in the box?
Oh, the box. So I've been working on this particular whiskey for a while, This product was not supposed to come out for another couple years, but I had the good fortune of coming into some casks. So it's a Gary Oak finished rye whiskey.
Nice.
Yeah, and this has been something I want to do. Being on Vancouver Island, we have most of the Gary Oak range. It was made, and some barrels get made with windfall trees when they blow down. You can't log them or anything, but a few barrels were being made, and I was able to source some from Oregon, and this particular whiskey was transferred after aging in New American Oak for 6 months in a Gary Oak barrel.
What does Gary Oak impart?
So it's the notes are always darker. So if you find a whiskey, like it might start off with honey or caramel, and it quickly becomes molasses or like that's the note. A lot of dark notes like black tea and pepper, but the oak itself is really well known for, or it contains a lot of fluvanol, which is a butterscotch-like flavor. It's just a totally different experience, and we've got great distilleries in the U.S. using it for single malt whiskey.
I'm going to remember that term. Give me something with some fluvanol in it.
There you go, exactly. Then you need Gary Oak. Hard to get though. Yeah, pretty. This is the first time rye whiskey has ever been made in Gary Oak.
Can you grow your own Gary Oak? I know it would take a lifetime.
Absolutely. Like, you know what they say about oak trees, the best time to plant it was 20 years ago, and the next best time is today. Yeah, but no, I haven't. Unfortunately, fortunately, I've come into some Gary Oak in my neighborhood.
Nice.
Yeah, so we had a big windstorm and some fell 4 years ago, and I had that oak quarter sawed and milled out in Lake Cowichan. And then you need to leave, before you make a barrel, you need to leave the oak dry stacked outside. And Gary Oak needs a minimum of 3 years of the rain and the sun to tame to create pleasant flavors and tame down the tannins.
But it works.
Yeah, so now I've got the wood I have for those will be made into barrels, and then we'll we'll end up with a release in 2 years that'll be BC, Vancouver Island grown Gary Oak made into a barrel. I think it'd be the first time, maybe at least in 100 years, since we have had a cooperage in Vancouver.
That's fantastic. Well done.
Thanks. And then we're going to it's a charity bottle as well, or charitable. So we're going to donate a bit of the money to I have a TBA. We're going to announce, but one of the organizations that are planting Gary Oaks or preserving the Gary Oak land.
Well done. Was just for doing that and thinking about that and pushing it forward. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah. So this particular bottle will come out. It's the cast strength version is what I poured for you. It'll come in a wood box. This is the very first concept one or prototype, but it's going to come out at the end of February. Distillery exclusive. We'll also have a broader 100 proof or 50% alcohol release, about 470 bottles. And that will be at the distillery, but also some whiskey-focused liquor stores like the Strath.
Would you take that bottle like a television presenter and just place it up close to that camera so they can see it while I ask you something?
Sure.
There you go. No, you could.
Oh.
Just you got long hair.
Like there?
There you go. There you
All
go.
right.
Now you're in telling.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so have you do you challenge yourself to find that new flavor, that new release, that new whiskey, that new bottle each and every year? And are you up to speed now? You feel pretty comfortable?
I think so. We've gotten to a point where we've only been in existence for 8 years, so we've been working on planning our releases out farther. So we have most of our whiskey releases planned for this year. I think we've found our own, the whiskeys, almost all of them are releasing this year 100% rye mash whiskeys. Yeah. So really strong and flavorful. The Gary Oak is a part of our product that's here to stay. Yeah. So this will be once a year. The other thing we like to do is really we're trying to change the perception of what rye whiskey can taste like. And to do that, we're using a whole bunch of variety of casks. So I've got a sherry cask, PX finished rye. Okay. And then we've got, I think there's a Tokai and a Moscatel, a Tokai and a Madeira that'll come out. So my other mission is to put rye whiskey in every type of cask I can possibly find in the world.
Are you still doing master classes?
Yeah, we actually I'm done here at the festival, but at the distillery,
Yeah.
our master class once a month, we focus on one distillery. So those that don't know me, I'm a huge whiskey fan first and foremost, and every month I focus on a distillery that I've visited, and then I present some whiskeys that are hard to get. Anyway, every December we do the Stillhead warehouse tasting. Okay. So that's once a year, but I do tours. But the thing I've been doing for the classes is we do a blending workshop, and we have a trophy in the distillery. So we had our first blending friendly competition. You get to blend your own bottle of whiskey and take it home, and we have a blind tasting.
And the winner was?
Actually, a lovely customer of ours named Jen.
Okay.
And she wasn't even going to enter. She's not much of a whiskey fan, and her husband's more of the whiskey fan right now. But I said, I think you've got somebody with nothing to lose is like a hockey team with nothing to lose. So she won. Yeah.
I'll consider just closing perhaps a project distillery that just lifted off, just achieved liftoff in Saanich, called Best Coast. You might want to sniff around there and see what they're doing.
Yeah, I've seen their product. It seems like the longer you're in distilleries, the busier and the less time you have. And I don't get to. I just go where I'm told. So I haven't been able. I haven't been told to go visit out Saanich yet, but I know that they're doing some cool things.
Thank you very much. What's your website?
Stillhead.ca.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Terry.